The news yesterday was that we ran a $223 billion deficit last month. That's the largest deficit on a monthly basis in the history of our country. Our friends on the other side are going to offer a proposal here in the next day or two to cut a paltry $4 billion or so for the balance of this fiscal year. That's actually $2 billion less than the President suggested he would take last week. And that's about the deficit we're running on a daily basis. So the most they appear to be willing to offer at this stage is 1 day's worth of deficit for the balance of this fiscal year. Look, it is really time to get serious about the problem that we have. We all know that even if we were able to take $61 billion out of this year's spending, that is just a tiny first step toward tackling the $14 trillion deficit we now have, which is as big as our economy, and doesn't even take into account the over $50 trillion in unfunded liabilities we have in both Medicare and Medicaid. This is a serious, serious time, and it requires a serious response. And so I'm hoping that as we work our way toward the end on this year's spending, we can go far beyond 1 day's worth of deficit reduction.
The question we have on the federal debt is, where's the President of the United States? It's the President's job to see an urgent need to develop a strategy and persuade at least half the people that he's right. He had an opportunity to do that on the President's Debt Commission, but he didn't. He had an opportunity to do that in the State of the Union address, but there was no sense of urgency about the debt. He had an opportunity to do that when the federal budget was proposed. Yet it was a record number of deficits coming out in the next few years in that budget. We need for the President of the United States to step up to the plate, as he's said he would, and work with Republicans and Democrats to address a federal government debt that is borrowing 40 cents out of every dollar that we spend this year.
As we all know, the average price of gasoline is north of $3.50 a gallon. And this is another area where the President has simply failed to lead on national energy policy, which threatens our fragile economic recovery. Obviously, with the political unrest in the Middle East, our supplies and our dependency on imported oil from abroad is jeopardized, creating spikes in prices. But it just goes, proves as a further point of evidence that the failure of the administration to have a rational energy policy that's based on producing American energy rather than continuing to rely on imported sources of oil is not just a matter of our economic security, but our national security as well. We need the President to lead on this issue, because his failure to lead will further threaten our economic recovery.
Well, let's look at some figures. Unemployment among government workers is about 4.5%. Most of those government workers work for state and local government. The federal government over the last 2 years has added 100,000 employees. The only entity in America that's not sacrificing during this economic downturn is federal government workers. I can't guarantee that somebody might not be affected, somebody's job might be affected by reducing government spending. But we have largely insulated the federal government from this recession. And I don't think that's a good argument for not trying to begin to get our fiscal house in order. If government spending would stimulate the economy, we'd be in the middle of a boom. We've added $3 trillion to the debt in the last 2 years. We spent almost $1 trillion on a stimulus package. If government spending was going to fix this economy and create jobs, we'd be in the middle of a boom. In fact, 3 million workers have lost their jobs during this same period. Now, we don't think there's any case that can be made that the failure to reduce government spending is going to be disastrous for the economy. Chairman Bernanke was asked the question last week about the House-passed bill, whether it would have an adverse impact on the economy, and I believe his answer was he didn't think so. So we just don't buy the notion that by beginning to try to reduce government spending, we're going to have an adverse impact on particularly the private sector, which has borne the brunt of this recession.
It seems that the Republicans over here won't take yes for an answer. They're the ones that Rule 14, the H.R. 1, and now we've been stalling for several days to get a definite vote set up on this. That was the arrangement we made last Thursday in the Vice President's office. We told them they want to vote on that reckless H.R. 1, you can do it. But now we get a lot of hemming and hawing, and that doesn't seem to be where they want to be. The proposal from the House is so extreme, cutting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs and doing some very, very bad things with their riders, in addition to the job loss that the bill would create. The truth is that the Republicans are so desperate to satisfy this little narrow base that they have, they're willing to sacrifice American jobs just for that. This is about priorities. We've shown during this Congress that we are focused on jobs. That's why the FAA bill was so important. 280,000 jobs. The patent bill, 300,000 jobs. That will be done as soon as they give up on their wasteful 30 hours. We've got other things to do. But yet again, as they said in the last Congress, they're wasting hour after hour as they're doing on the patent bill. We should already have completed that. There's one amendment pending. We could get rid of that in just a few minutes. The one thing that the Republicans have not talked about is the one thing the American people care about more than anything else, and that is jobs. In fact, it's the direct opposite. They're destroying jobs. We're fighting for the middle class. We're fighting for the poor people. We're fighting for the poor little Head Start kids who they are saying, you've had enough help. You don't need any more help. It's time we put politics aside and focus on the kind of common sense solutions to create jobs that the American people expect. We are doing what we feel is right for the American people. We are in consultation with the President every day. We believe that H.R. 1, which has been focused on by you folks and others, is something that is not good for this country. And we're making sure that the Republicans who wanted to move to H.R. 1 will do that. We feel that this is the right thing to do. We feel that these cuts that they have in H.R. 1 don't create jobs. They hurt the economy and cause more people to lose their jobs. So we feel comfortable with having the White House and the Democratic Senate. We wish we had the House, but we don't. I've been in touch with the White House literally every day, including weekends. They're involved in this crisis we have created by the Republicans in the House. The President's engaged in this. He's got a few other problems I've indicated with what's going on in the Middle East and many other things. So no, the President's been very easy to deal with as usual.